All right, here we go. This one's going to be a 223 test. Today we're going to be testing out some of the Velocitas VX223. That is a huge thank you to Trey over at Velocitas Bullets for sending this stuff out and making this test possible. Really appreciate it and excited to see what this stuff can do. So here's what that thing looks like. It is a hollow point. It does have 3 very deep cuts down in that bullet. Your standard brass case, and we're not too sure on rated velocity. Doesn't have it on the box, but we should be getting around 22 to 2300 feet per second out of our setup today. So we are going to be testing out of our Zastava Zpap85. That one does have that 10-inch barrel. We'll be going through our gel, and those are 10% calibrated blocks. The over catch block behind that, so a total of 22 inches of gel, 4 layers of cotton t-shirt in the front, and like always, we'll set up our chronograph so we can hopefully pick up those impact velocities. So let's set up and see how this round does. All right, we're setting at to 15 feet. All right, let's see how we did on that one. All right, so it looks like our impact velocity on that one was 2,055 feet per second. So a little bit lower than what we're expecting, but still pretty good. All right, and there's that hit. Looks like I got a pretty good shot on that block. And look how small that hole is, man. Not like our normal pistol rounds, but looking like we got a pretty big star pattern. So let's check it out from the top. Oh yeah, definitely quite a bit of damage. You could see it's a little bit delayed, like I said, compared to our pistol rounds, probably inch and a half before it started to open up. But once it did, man, it's dumping a ton of energy. You can see that thing open up. It looks like there is a little bit of copper. I did forget to mention these are solid copper bullets. There's no lead in them, but yeah, definitely did really good. You can see it kind of started to taper off a little bit towards that second one. We did make it into our second one, and we did catch it in the second one, so that's always a plus there. So let's see what kind of measurement we have here from this top. Looks like we did get a little bit of a blowout. Then on the side, like always, we'll get a little bit more accurate cross-section measurement here later, but it looks like we are right at 3.5 inches. So definitely, pretty good for that. So let's check it out from the side. Oh yeah, you can really see what's going on, but you can see, right before it started to open up. Let's get a little bit of a measurement. Looks like we're about 1.5 inches before we got anything. And then, man, like I said, once it did, it really opened up, dumping a ton of energy. You can see those petals that did end up shearing off. Trey did tell me that those are going to come off. Regardless, they're just really thin, so they shear right off. But, nothing wrong with that, especially with the penetration we're getting. But you can see it tapered off a little bit towards that second one, and there it is in that second one. So let's see what kind of measurement we have here. Looks like from the very bottom of the table, we're about 3.25 inches. So a little bit less from the side than the top, but still really good. And it looks like that thing is facing backwards. So you can kind of see right there where it started to tumble. And then it did end up turning around. And at our leading edge there, we are at 7 inches. So that made a total of 18 inches of penetration. So, really good to see. So we're going to set it for a second shot and see if we get some kind of consistency there. All right, we're setting back to 15 feet. All right, let's see what we did on that one. All right, so it looks like our impact velocity on that one was 2109. So it looks like we got about 60 feet per second more than that last one, 55 to 60. We'll do the exact math here, in a little bit, but it looks like, we got a little bit more, so always good to see there. All right, and there's that hit. Looks like we had another decent shot. You can see kind of right down that cavity. Like I said, those are some pretty small holes, but you know, that is a 22 caliber bullet. But you can see there's a nice star pattern so far. So let's check this one out from the top. Oh yeah, looking really good. Pretty much exactly like that last one. Right around the 1.5 inch mark, started to get some expansion, dumping a ton of energy. You can see those petals a little bit better on this one where they did shear off. And then you can see another huge track going through. And then it did taper off there towards the end. It looks like that one also made it into our second block a pretty good way. So good stuff there. So let's measure from the top. This one's gonna be a little bit difficult because they did end up colliding. But it looks like we are about 3.5 inches. So a little bit more than that first one, literally by about, 1/4 inch. So, but it's kind of expected. That thing was moving a little bit faster. And here it is from the side, same thing, came in, opened up. You can see some nice disruption, tearing that gel up. And it looks like once again, we did get a little bit tumbling, towards the end. But then there is those copper petals, dumping all kinds of energy through there, going, and then that one actually is facing forward. So that's good. Let's see what kind of measurement we have here from the side. Looks like at our widest spot, we're about 2.5 inches. So a little bit less from the side than the top, but that is okay. And then hopefully you guys can see this. Looks like it did get a little bit more penetration, and that one is facing forward. And let's see, at our leading edge, we are about 8.5 inches. So that one made it 19.5 inches of total penetration. So a little bit more than that first one. But, really good stuff. And like I said, those ones did shear the petals off. Those things weren't really meant to hang on, but pretty good stuff. So let's check these tracks one more time from the top. So one on the right was that first shot, one on the left was that second shot. So here is that first shot. You can see came in, opened up, dumping a ton of energy. Nice star pattern all the way through. Did make it into that second block. And there it is. It is that one there on the top. And here's that second shot. Pretty much same thing. Those tracks are very, very similar. Came in, opened up. You can see once again those petals kind of shearing off, dumping all kinds of energy. You can kind of see where it's starting to tumble, getting a little bit more disruption. You can see where it kind of tapered and then opened back up. And then, doing quite a bit, ton of penetration. That one is the one that's a little bit further on that top. So really good to see. So let's pull these rounds and see what they look like. All right, check those things out. Looks like they both did really good. Like I said, those petals weren't meant to, stay attached. They did end up shearing off, so we basically just have the, solid base of the round, but still looking really good. So the one on the right was that first shot, one on the left was that second shot. So we're going to show them anyways, even though there's not too much to see. Can see those really deep rifling marks. And then you can see those things are pretty darn jagged, where they did end up, pulling those petals off. Like I said, these are solid copper also, but definitely some nasty stuff. Here's that second round, literally exactly the same, but definitely a nasty round. And velocity was, pretty close to advertised, which is always good. We are using a little bit shorter barrels, so kind of expected, but still some pretty nasty stuff. So check these things out one more time, kind of from the bottom. And last time from the front end. Like always, we'll get our still shot, slow-mo, everything here at the end. And, once again, thank you, Trey, for sending this stuff out and, letting us test you guys' ammo. It's definitely some awesome stuff. And if you go to Velocitas Bullets, and at checkout, we do have a promo code, AZA, at checkout. And, you do get a little bit of a discount. So that's always good. So once again, thank you, Trey, for sending this stuff. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. All right, and here's that cross-section for that first shot. You can see we have some pretty big cuts and splits in there. It does have that perfect tri-cut. And of course, those bullets do have 3 petals that open up exactly like that. So it's pretty cool to see that pattern in the gel. You can see splits all the way down, really, really big. So I did remeasure these. They are peaking right at 3.5 and averaging right around that 3-inch mark. So definitely pretty impressive, especially with the velocities we're getting. We're not getting the most out of those. Of course, we were using a shorter barrel, but still very impressive stuff. So let's cut it open. All right, so here's after being cut. So this bottom is the right side and this top is the left. So you can see pretty much right where that thing came in. It actually traveled about 1.25 inches. I did measure 1.25 inches before it started doing anything. But once it did, man, it really opened up and tore this stuff up. You can see massive splits going all the way down. huge you know, track going all the way through. Like I said, this wasn't moving the fastest. I believe we were in the high 500s for you know, foot-pounds of energy, which is a little bit low for 5.56 or 2.23, but man, the amount of damage those things do is just really makes up for it. It's crazy. Ton of damage. Same on this side. You can see that real small track, right? That 1.25 inches just started to flare open, and then once again, huge path. You can see it really starts to open up out here. I did actually get a couple of the pedals. I got a full set from one of them, and then the other one I was only able to get 2. There's the other one right there, but still pretty cool that we caught them all but one. One, of course, did leave the block, but crazy amount of damage for sure. Let's do one more quick angle so you get an idea what's going on or how deep those cuts are. Yeah, pretty impressive stuff. Like I said, that tri-cut's really cool the way it you know, it does do that. Same with their 9mm line, the VX9. It does exactly the same thing, but very impressive. So there we go. That one was that first shot. All right, and there's that cross section for that second shot. So pretty much same thing as that last one. Has that really cool tri-cut going down in there. Really big splits. Same over here on this side. A little bit more spider webby on this side, but you know, quite a bit. So I did remeasure these. They are peaking right at the 3 3/4 inch and averaging right around that 3.5 inch mark. I believe that's about a 1/4 inch more than that last one. But this one was traveling about 50 to 60 feet per second faster. So kind of expected there, but yeah, very impressive stuff. So let's cut it open. All right, and here's after being cut. So this bottom is the right side and this top is the left. So like, you know, just like that last shot, you can see it came in right around that 1.25 1.5 inch mark where it started to open up and just tear this stuff up. This track was more, you know, left and right compared to up and down, just the way that we cut it. So you're not going to see as much as that last track, but they're pretty much identical. But you can really see it jumbled it up down in there. Really nasty track for sure. Same on this side, came in, opened up. Once again, some devastating stuff. Really cool to see that round work. It would be nice if those pedals did hold on, but you know, like I said, I did speak with Trey and he said that those are pretty much meant to do that because they're so thin it's hard to actually keep them on that you know, core of the bullet. But very cool stuff for sure. Here is another view, just so you can see what's really going on. Like I said, you can see that tri-cut going on down in there. Pretty nasty stuff. Same on this side. This side's barely hanging on. Pretty impressive. So hopefully one day we can get a little bit, you know, longer barrel, maybe 16 plus, and test it and see, you know, how it does out of that. But until then, that was still a fun test with that shorter barrel and cool to see what that ammo could really do. So once again, thank you, Trey. Appreciate you sending this stuff out. You know, always fun testing all the ammo you guys have. And that one was the 60 grain VX223 by Velocitas. Like I said, make sure to check out their site. Promo code AZA at checkout. Get a little bit of a discount. Thanks again for watching, guys.